welcome to Thrive Up. Today's episode we have Yang Su. His journey started in the world of microbiology, and then he moved into electrical engineer. Now he is a staff engineer. Along the way, Yang faced tons of challenges, but he never gave up. He constantly pushed himself out of the comfort zone and working really hard to develop the skills he needs to grow professionally. In today's episode, Yang will share his journey. He will also give you some awesome advice on how to level up as a staff software engineer, and he will share specific strategies for each stage. Let's delve into the conversation.
I will do it without thinking about the consequences. And I stepped up and in front of a big audience. I think it was about 1,000 people.
1,000?
I go to the operating room. I take the tissues from recently deceased individuals, for example, their skin, their tendons, extracting them. I'll tell myself it's gonna be all right. Things will work out in the end eventually, even though it doesn't seem like it goes your way.
Today, I'm excited to introduce Yang Su to our podcast. Yang's journey started in the world of microbiology and then moved into electrical engineering. And now he's killing it as a staff software engineer. Along the way, Yang faced a ton of challenges, but he never gave up. He constantly pushed himself out of his comfort zone, working really hard to develop the skills he needed to grow. In this episode, Yang will share his experiences of dealing with tough times and the life philosophy that has guided him. He will also share some awesome advice on how to level up as a staff software engineer, with specific strategies for each stage. So let's jump into the interview.
Hi everyone, my name is Yang. I'm a staff software engineer at ApplyBoard. We are a company that's a startup located in Waterloo, Ontario, and we create platform for students to apply universities from all over the world to Canada, North America, Australia, and things like that.
That's so cool. What does staff engineer do?
That's a great question, Annie. I'm very happy you asked that question because me myself also have the same question when I was promoted to a staff engineer. But based on my understanding of what staff engineer is, according to what my company policy is, it's a position that's higher than obviously a senior engineer and is someone who can apply influence across teams. So I guess in essence, staff engineers will promote good engineering practices across the organization and be able to mentor other senior engineers as well.
I see. I'm curious to learn your journey, how you become a staff engineer. Really?
Absolutely. I love to share my journey.
Sure.
I did a degree in microbiology at the beginning because microbiology. That's right, because I was really interested in healthcare and I really want to become a doctor. Like all Asian parents want their kids to do is to become a doctor. And after getting into microbiology for a while and after getting my degree, unfortunately I could not get into medicine. So I wanted to find a backup, and it turns out I want to try a little bit into electrical.
Why electrical engineering?
Because I thought it was very challenging, and it's something that I was a little bit curious thing. When I'm thinking about electrical engineering, I'm thinking about, building sensors and building robots and things like that. And that to me sounds very interesting. And in a way, I feel if I was able to build robot or things like imaging techniques, I would be able to utilize my healthcare background with electrical engineering together to build things that will, I guess, better humanity. That's one thing I was thinking about, like basically combining these two areas of knowledge into one to do something better for people.
But sounds like neither biology or electrical engineering have to do with anything you're doing right now.
That's exactly it. You got it. So my last year of electrical engineering degree, I was able to do a capstone project, which kind of tied everything together. My team and I were building wireless body network where we can place sensors onto patients' body to track their position within the hospital, as well as, for example, their walking cadences and their postures to kind of give an idea on what the patient is doing within the hospital. It's for a recovery purposes. And this particular app kind of opened my eyes in terms of what programming can do, like the data that we're collecting and then what we can use these data for can really help our doctors. And I found this, wow, this is very, very interesting. And only 5 of us were able to come up with an app. It's almost production ready. So I thought, like, software development, I can really make an impact as just myself to make apps to impact others. Whereas in electrical, I would need to have a way bigger team, have to have a lot of funding to be able to make even the smallest things. That's why I thought software engineering or software is very interesting, and I really want to dig deeper into it, and I want to be able to build my own type of software. And that's the reason I kind of chose software development later on after I graduated electrical.
How do you get a software engineer job?
That I would have to say is based on luck, and I would say a lot of it is based on luck and perseverance, because when I was in electrical, I graduated, I want to first apply for electrical related jobs. I couldn't find any. However, a friend of mine reached out to me and said, hey, our company is hiring. We're an AI startup company. Are you interested? So I told myself, you know what, at this point, might as well, I will try it, because even though I don't have the background in coding whatsoever. So the company, the CEO, gave me a question in terms of finding number of spots on a particular animal. So this was kind of interesting because I have taken a computer image course in my electrical degree. So it kind of hitting exactly what I was doing, and I was able to solve the problem, and the CEO was really happy about it. And of course I did, I put way more effort than they were giving me. They only gave me 3 hours to do this particular assignment. I spent the whole night doing the assignment and to prepare this particular project. The CEO saw my work and was really happy about what I was able to produce. So he hired me on the spot, even though there was no opening in that company at that time.
That's very inspiring to hear how you get
I
this
think
first
I was
job.
extremely lucky to be able to have such a supportive friend that was helping me out in the time of need.
But
So
you also put all the effort, and also
yeah, of course. I feel as a starting intern or when you just graduated, you really have to put in more work than anybody else to be able to pivot your career. So it's definitely a necessary step that I have to do. Yes.
When you're looking for your first job, what was your goal at that time?
At that time, I was trying to find a job.
Any job?
Any job, because I had a lot of student debt after my electrical engineering degree.
Okay.
Even though I was working about, sometimes 3 jobs in a semester, it was really tough. So paying off the debt was my number 1 priority. So
I see.
yeah, that was the first job I got offered with. Actually, there was another job because this job has to do with AI and startup. I felt it's more interesting, engaging, and that's why I picked this one.
So you have to work 3 jobs while you study marketing?
Yes, because it's expensive, and I have to pay for myself, so yeah.
So you work 3 jobs?
Yes. And
Like
they're not full-time jobs, they're
3
part-time
part-time jobs,
That's
and
right.
also your schoolwork, and also you prepare for the interview.
Prepare for the interview. Yes.
How do you manage all those?
It's not easy, and there was a lot of trade-offs. I was working really hard, and because of lack of sleep, because one of the job I was actually working in the hospital. I was working overnight in the hospital for 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. sometimes. So I would have to be able to drink coffee and then be able to wake up the next day and go through lectures. It was quite difficult, and from that whole experience, I actually got different stomach problems from that, which it took me almost 2 years to recover from, and then also had sleeping issues after. So overall, I don't highly recommend working 3 different jobs because you should watch out for your health. It's much, much important than just a job.
Sounds like a really tough time.
Yeah, after going through it, it definitely was, but I think the experience made me tougher in terms of handling newer challenges in the future. So I think it was worth it, but not the disease or the health issue part.
If you look back, then what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? That is a great question. I haven't really thought about what would I do differently, but if I had a time machine, maybe when I first started my career or when I entered university, I might as well just get into computer science to begin with. I think that would be cool, jump directly into it, but I might have a completely different outcome as what I am today. I might be a completely different person. So there's not much that I regret, and there's not much I would like to change from this perspective.
Having 3 jobs and also coursework. No, coursework is never easy, especially electrical engineer. I know it's very tough, very stressful.
Yeah.
You have pressure to looking for a job. Is there any belief or anything that motivates you or cheer you up? Any supporting system?
Right. I would have to say at that time, even if I'm trying to reflect at that time, it was definitely really difficult, no doubt. My parents that were definitely there, were very supportive of me, but also all my friends were very supportive. I was reaching out to my friends, my contacts all the time, constantly to seeing like what kind of job opportunity they have. If there were any, they will refer me to their position, and therefore my friend Kathy, actually that's her name, referred me to the startup, and that was the reason why I was able to get employed, even though it was really difficult at that time. And there's also a little bit of self-belief as well within there. To me, it feels like I went through all that tough times. It cannot be any harder than going to school, going to electrical engineer, plus 3 different jobs, trying to find, it becomes easier once you get through tougher times.
That makes you stronger now, right?
Exactly. And now everything seems to be easier than before.
What would you say to those people who are going through those dark period right now?
I would say it's gonna be all right. Yeah, I think that's something I would say to myself as well when things are going tough. I will tell myself it's gonna be all right. Things will work out in the end eventually, even though it doesn't seem like it goes your way. Sometimes world works in a different way than we anticipate, even though we might be, for example, studying electrical engineering for 4 years, then which when you graduate, go into software is completely okay, and sometimes it works out for the better. And when I reflect back, and I talk to my friend who does work in as an electrical engineer, and they told me what they're doing, and I feel, hey, you know what? Actually, I did pick the right career, and I do enjoy what I'm doing compared to what I would have ended up if I found an electrical engineer job.
Have you ever felt you were left behind from your peers? Maybe your peers at the same age, they graduate from computer science, they already get a job.
Yep.
Maybe they're already a senior at the time you're looking for
Yep.
your first job. Are you wasting your time for all the school time? Like, have you ever had those doubts?
Right. I definitely have those doubts. I definitely have those type of struggles when I think about it. As you mentioned, if you had a time machine, go back in time, would you want to go through things more linearly than going to different directions and then turn to software in the end? I think I would be lying if I didn't have those kind of thoughts in my head. But I also believe that things happen for a reason, and the things I learned in electrical, the things I learned in microbiology does help me. If not now, it will help me in the future because I have interest in healthcare and software development, and I think my background in both will actually give me a unique position to work in the healthcare and comp sci field in the future. So I don't think overall it's wasted. I think it just improve me in a way that's not easily seen by others. It's not something like money in terms of, hey, this is how much money I'm making and therefore I'm successful. It's just more of a fulfilled person, or I'm a better person in a more roundabout way.
So you're looking at what kind of person you become. You're looking at this is your niche. This is what makes you special.
That's right. For me, after all these years of working, I'm more focused on myself rather than, for example, as you mentioned, what title, how much money we're making. Of course, amount of money that we make is important for ourselves, but not for comparison. For me, it's important because I want to support my family. I want to be able to, purchase the things I want to have. But it's not important to say I want to compare with John or with Annie, like where we are at. It's not something I really think about at all.
But that was still very, very brave of you to make a decision that you want to be a software engineer after your 2 degree in microbiology and electric engineer.
That's right. And sometimes life throw you curveballs and gotta live with it. And if I, say, hey, I hate this, I'm not gonna do this, maybe I will still not have a job. Well, not likely, but probably not in a good position at this time. But sometimes you just got to roll with the punches, be able to adapt. I think that's what Darwinism is all about. It's about the person or the being that's able to adapt will be the one that survives at the end.
Did you have any influencer or your role model at that time?
That's a very interesting question. I had many different role models throughout my life. But during that time, I'm guessing you're talking about a time where I was starting my career?
Oh, anytime. Anything you want to share.
Oh,
I'd
anytime.
love to hear.
For sure. So I think during my first job, as I mentioned, I started with an electrical engineering degree. I didn't have that much software programming experiences. So in my first job, even though I got in, it was great. I was really happy. But the moment I went into the job, everything felt crushing down on me because the first task I was given was to create a particular front-end widget. And I never dealt with front-end before. I never dealt with JavaScript, Angular, or any of those frameworks before. And my team lead at that time just said, let's pair program and please write this widget. It was almost like he was talking to me in a completely different language. I don't even know where to start. I was so afraid that I could not even type a single character on the keyboard. What really helped me was he said, don't be afraid, let me take the lead, and then I will type and then explain how things are. As an electrical engineer, we normally, or at least I don't normally start writing or actually do things unless I have a plan. And to see him just start typing on the keyboard without thinking, without really having applying his head, was really changing my perspective on what computer engineering was about. I realized computer engineering is not about not making mistakes. It's a very iterative process. You start with something, you build on top of it, and you iteratively make it better and better, which is so different from electrical engineering. And that's something I learned. It's okay to make a mistake. And even as someone who is senior as he had 20 years of experience, he also made a mistake. And the act of him showing me that process made me so much more comfortable. So he was definitely one of my mentors, and I learned so much from just that experience to make me more comfortable in terms of coding. The second mentor, which is very interesting, is an internship student that joined that startup in the summer. He was very smart intern. He knows a lot of things about software development, and what he was really good at, which other engineers were not good at, was the teaching the basics. So he was able to communicate very effectively on what things are from a basic computer science perspective, whereas the other senior engineers talk in a way that they assume the basics, they know the lingo and all sorts of things. But the intern was able to explain everything from me from a very fundamental perspective. And that really opened up my eyes. These are the things I need to study on my own. I want to go through a computer science degree by myself by asking him what kind of course I should be taking, and then also getting his help. If anything I don't understand, I'll reach out to him. So it's kind of funny that I learned most of my computer science skills from an intern.
Seems like he is very empathetic for a beginner, so he's
That's
able
right.
to like people who don't
Yeah.
have such background. And you're also very humble that you're willing to learn from an intern, even though
Yes.
I assume you were a full-time job.
Yeah,
A
I was.
full-time worker
That was
at
a
that
full time.
time.
That's right. Yeah, even as of today, I have a pretty open-minded approach in terms of what I know, what I don't know, because all engineers or software developer experience later in their career, they will start to realize the more they know, the less they know. I think it's truth for all professions. The more you at the beginning, you feel like you don't know anything, and then you start going to a stage where you start feeling, oh, I'm getting the hang of it. But then the more experience you get, then you start realizing, oh, actually, I only know very, very little. There's so much people that knows more about what I do know. So right now, I treat everyone as if they were my mentor. There's definitely something they can teach me, and there's definitely things that they don't know that I might teach them. I see the world in a more flexible pattern. It's not like when I see someone with a principal engineer title, I will think they know everything else. They definitely know a lot of things that I don't know, but they still have things that they don't know.
Yeah, wow, that's very inspiring. You don't see everyone just associated with their title, with their company, with their achievement. You see them as a person, and you can
Yeah.
learn from their knowledge.
And I can contribute to teaching other people as well. I would love to share my experience with other people, and if it can encourage them to do better, that would be great, and I'm all up for it.
Is that why you're willing to come to the podcast and then share your own experience?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's definitely one of the reasons I come to the podcast. I want to be able to share my experience because I talked to a few people, and when they heard my story, they said, oh, okay, that's really cool. If you can share with other people, that would be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here I am.
I already feel very touched by what you've been through. Right now, you are a staff engineer. Is that your goal when you were entry-level engineer?
That's very interesting because when I was a junior engineer, when I first went into the company, that was definitely not one of my goals. I did not even know staff engineer was a thing.
Okay.
The only thing I knew was there's a junior, then there's intermediate, and then there's senior. And senior is the people who knows it all. Becoming a staff engineer was not a goal that I had when I was a junior. Instead, what I had as a goal for a junior myself was that I want to learn more about software development overall. I want to be able to understand what the seniors were doing, understand their opinions, why they do certain things a certain way. And of someone without great background in computer science, I want to catch up of all the things I missed. So I was learning basic computer science myself. So I took an MIT course in terms of data structure and algorithm, and then was reading operating systems book myself to catch up, basically.
How do you manage all those tasks at that time?
Right. I think there's definitely a lot of sacrifices during that time as well, because at work, what I try to do is I try to get help as much as I can. And obviously, not just getting help to get the task done, it's more so I will attempt a task, and then gauge how well I'm doing by talking with other seniors and just present my work and not feeling embarrassed about the quality of my work. Just pick their brain and say, I designed this component this way. What do you think? Can it be improved? Why you want to improve this way? So I think this kind of feedback loop really got me ahead of myself in a quick manner. So there's a lot of feedback, and not to be ashamed of what you don't know and just ask. I think that's very, very important for someone who is starting off.
Thanks for sharing that. How do you manage your time for doing all the learning?
During that work was I get off at 5:30. After work, I will eat, and then for the next 3 hours or 4 hours, I will be taking courses, and I will set up schedules for myself. For example, the first 2 months, I need to finish the data structure and algorithm. After work, spend 3 hours listening to YouTube, doing the problems, and continue doing that for 2 months or 3 months. Of course, there are times where I feel tired and exhausted, and I take a break. After a few more weeks, I'll continue down that path because I know that those things, it's always going to be on my mind, that the feeling of, I don't know, data structure and algorithm will constantly haunts me. So I keep on saying, okay, I will go back to it when I have time. Eventually stop waiting and then go back to it. Yeah.
Wow. So staff engineer is never your goal.
That's right. And also another important part of being staff is be able to talk with different stakeholders, talk with different teams to see how I can help them to make their life better or make their life easier. So I have that mindset of I want to deliver value, not just for the company. I want to deliver value to my team as well. And I think that type of mindset brought me to the staff engineer level.
Oh, the mindset that you want to deliver value, helping people.
That's right.
A lot of engineers, at least I know, are quite introverted.
That's right.
They don't like to talk to people. They enjoy the technology, and
That's right.
I find it's a challenge to grow their people skill, grow the skills to mentoring people, to influence other people.
That's right.
Can you share your suggestion or your experience on that?
Right. Be able to communicate with others effectively definitely comes with, well, I keep on saying the word sacrifice, but I think it does. I definitely see a lot of developers who are really good at doing what they're doing, but the fact that they're not able to communicate their thoughts make them actually less effective as an engineer overall, because if nobody across the company or across the team understand what they're doing, then they're a buzz factor. So when they leave, nobody knows what kind of gap they left. And in terms of stepping out of your comfort zone, especially if you're an introvert, I'm definitely an introvert myself. I have to practice myself or force myself to be able to speak. So I can go back a little bit more. I was so introverted when I was younger that I was not able to talk to other people because English is not my first language. And when I was in Toronto, there was actually a lot of bullying that happened, and it made me even less want to open up to other people. But I had the goal at that time to become a doctor. If a doctor is not able to speak, there's no way they can be a doctor. I noticed that as a shortcoming of mine. So I tackle it heads on. What I did was I applied for jobs in call centers, and just working call center really helped me to speak to other people. I absolutely hated the job, but I was speaking 8 hours a day with everybody, and it definitely helped me building confidence in terms of talking to others and to be able to speak English. That was the first thing I did. The second thing I did was when I was in university, I still had that fear of public speaking. Maybe not speaking to regular person, but public speaking was really tough for me. So what I did was, once again, there was an opportunity for me to become an MC for Chinese New Year. And I just said, you know what, I will do it without thinking about the consequences. And I stepped up and in front of a big audience. I think it was about 1,000 people.
1,000 people?
Yes, it was the biggest Chinese celebration in Manitoba. I was so nervous. I was so scared. I was holding the mic. My hands were shaking, and they were asking me to say those joyful Chinese greetings, and I was forgetting it. And you see the people below, they were looking at me straight, and they were like, "What is this guy about to say?" And I did a horrible job. I honestly say I did a horrible job, but the feeling of accomplishing it was great. I did it again the third year. And I hope my third year was better than my first year, but I don't know. Like, overall speaking, overcoming that fear was the difficult part. After overcoming the fear, then it's about practice. And then once you practice enough, then you become more confident in your way to speak and your way to express your feelings or express ideas. Then I'm more likely to share my idea. I think that's what made me today, so that I'm less afraid to speak and I'm able to express my ideas publicly.
Wow, so you have courage to step out of your comfort zone, even try to be MC in front of 1,000 people. That's
Yeah.
a huge accomplishment.
I mean, like when I look back, I would say I did a terrible job, but you know what? Having that courage is what matters, and everything else is just practice. And
Yeah.
I totally believe, as you mentioned before, people should have a growth mindset. We should not fixate on the idea that we cannot become better versions of ourselves. We can always improve on certain things. I might not be the world's fastest runner, but I can definitely beat my own score if I practice for a year or two. So, yeah.
Right now, if someone want to be a staff engineer, what would you say to them?
I would say talk to their managers because each company is very different. I can still give you some general idea in terms of what I think. To begin with the junior developer, in my perspective, I want you to do a lot of learning. At this point, you want to be a sponge. You want to be the sponge of your small team. You want to be learning as much as possible from different perspectives. Also learn from your QAs, PMs, to know the software development cycle, learn about the basic software processes, design patterns, and things like that. For intermediate position, we'll have less supervision, and you can handle the task yourself. And at this point, I'll be thinking about utilizing our knowledge, and don't stop there. Continue learning and start thinking about different ways of which completing the same task. And at the senior level, you're doing the similar things, except at a bigger scope, bigger scale. At the same time, learning more about software design, system design, and be able to pinpoint why did I make this particular design decision? What kind of trade-off did I make at that point? If you want to elevate from a senior to staff, and that point is more about making impact with other teams. So instead of just focusing on your own team, your own stakeholders, start reaching out to other teams. What are the problems other teams have? Do we have similar problems? Is there something I can help them with to make things a little bit better for them? And then just start talking with different organization stakeholders, sharing ideas. And obviously, you want to coach other senior engineers from your team and other team as well.
Wow, thanks for sharing such detailed suggestion for each level. It's very thoughtful of you. And
Yeah, I
it's,
hope
very
that helped.
informative. What do you think your experience at school, your experience at microbiology, and electrical engineer, and you're having 3 jobs, try to pay a student debt, and all those time, what do you think the impact of those experience have on life you have right now?
Yeah, I think it made a huge impact on me in terms of many things. It changed a lot about my values.
Can you share more?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it changed a lot about my values in terms of how I perceive the world. When I was younger, when I was in high school actually, I was a really, really smart kid according to other people. I was getting like the highest scores in mathematics and physics and all sorts of things. And I was a little bit full of myself at that time. So I was very arrogant and felt like, hey, getting into medicine is just a piece of cake. I felt going through all that experience made me much more grounded and makes me appreciate things that are different in life. Before, I was very into about how much money I'm making, what kind of title I have, things like that. But after going through that challenge of getting rejected, going through the new things of electrical engineering, and then be able to having to work, and sometimes working for people that I know during that time, is a very grounding process. It is very humbling. It's very humbling. I think that's a word I'm trying to search for. And I start to realize what matters the most for me is not about the titles. It's not about the money that I'm making. It's more about the connections. It's more about the impacts I can make to other people. If I can bring happiness to others, that's way more joyful. It's a way more enjoyable feeling than making a lot of money.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Through the process of failure, you become more grounded, more
Mhm.
humble,
Mhm.
more open to learn.
I think it really boosted my growth and also be able to challenge myself during that time. As I mentioned before, I was taking 3 different jobs. Why did I take 3 different jobs? Because
Yeah, why?
I want to challenge myself. It's like,
Okay.
hey, I have one job, well, this is interesting. Why not try a different job of a different area? Because I was working in a lab at that time. Another job, I was typing for students who have disabilities. I was going to different lectures and type whatever the lecture material there are for people with disability. And the third job was very interesting. People were very interested when they heard I did that. Was I work in the hospital to procure tissues. So it's very similar to organ donation, but I go to the operating room. I take the tissues from recently deceased individuals, for example, their skin, their tendons, extracting them because other people could actually benefit from it. It's similar, very similar to organ donation. So, that's exactly the face I saw when I told other people, say, I can't believe you have done this kind of job. It's very interesting.
Sorry, I was silent for a moment. I don't know what to say.
It's fine. It's very interesting. I think it was very interesting. And the thing was that after going through so many jobs, and even with the organ donation, the procurement, I went there with zero experience once again. I had some knowledge. I took some human physiology course, but I'm talking about hands-on with bodies, like doing yourself. It's like unheard of when I was thinking about it. Now I'm reflecting back. But in a way, I kind of learned that regardless what kind of job there is, I think I can do it. Like that growth mindset really kicks in. It's like, doesn't matter how incredibly difficult it seems on paper. If I'm there and I have the help with other people, like if I have mentorship, if I have good teammates, I can accomplish it. I think that is the biggest thing that I experienced during my university years.
Well, thanks for sharing. That's very, very touching over this whole journey. What is your biggest takeaway that you want to share to people who are listening to this podcast right now?
I think the biggest takeaway from me as a more of a general life lesson is don't give up. Continue trying if you're in a tough situation. Things will work out. It might not work in the way that you think it would, but I believe overall in the end it will work out. And obviously having the right mindset is very important, which is that growth mindset. I know for some people it might be very hard to switch between the mindsets, and I felt like I used to have a fixed mindset as well myself until I really try out different things. The more you try to step out of your comfort zone, committing to things that you think you'll never do before in your life, it will make you realize you're far more resilient, far more capable than you thought you were. In general, we should try to get out of comfort zone as much as possible. Try to reach out to different type of people around you, not just the people that you're comfortable talking with, but people who are, you're maybe a little bit more comfortable, maybe people you're afraid to talk to, and listen to their stories, and you might learn something yourself as well.
What do you recommend people to do so that they can be more consistent on what they're doing?
Right. I think for those who are about to give up on things, like for example, trying to become a dev or trying to learn about software development, first of all, take a deep breath and just relax.
Relax.
Yeah, just relax about it. Don't feel so stressed about the fact that there's so much things to learn within software, and it is kind of overwhelming. There's so much things. Even as a staff engineer today, I still feel like there's so many books I want to read, so many people I want to talk with to gain more insights. The learning is infinite. That's the thing. If you start thinking about software development, it's about after I read these 2 books, then I'm good enough. Maybe with the entry level, but it never stopped there. You have to constantly learn and continue learning.
Yeah.
And at the time where you hit this friction, where you feel like you're giving up, is actually a really good thing. The reason why I mention it's a really good thing is because a lot of times when you're in a really tough situation, that's the time where you grow the most. So once again, when you encounter the toughest time, that's where you grow the most. Because once you get through that tough time, things might go much, much easier, and you'll start to forget that tough time. But that exact moment is where you learn the most. And a lot of times, if you get through that tough spot, you'll be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to continue going. And of course, like each and every one of us can only do so much. Sometimes it's worthwhile to reach out to other people, to find mentors or find study buddies or find other people who are in the same position as you, and together we can elevate each other and get through the tough times.
Thanks for sharing. That's quite informative, very empowering.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, anything you want to share at the very end?
I think in the end, another advice for everyone is that go out and meet like-minded people. Like what I've been doing recently. I recently have been going out of my comfort zone, actually, once again, to go to different meetups. I think being able to meet like-minded people really energizes me. Even though I'm a very introverted person, meeting other developers who have different insights or meeting even new people who needs help helps me as a person, because I'm actually worth something to these new people. I can give them good advices, they can elevate them or can find them a job, and I will feel extremely happy. There are so many people who know so much and I can learn from. I think this is really good. In general, I believe a lot of software developers are pretty introverted, but try to step out of their comfort zone and go join a community. By building the community, you'll find a sense of purpose, and then you can develop your skills at the same time. So I'm definitely vouching for more meetups and go out a little bit more.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I can really relate to this part, that I also feel empowered by meeting like-minded people. They're kind of like accountability partners, supporting system.
Yeah.
And you see the different side of world. A lot of time as a developer, if you don't intentionally step out of comfort zone and meet different people, it's easy that you're just stuck in your own world with a limited vision.
Yeah, I'm glad you relate to it as well. But yeah, like sometimes like meeting like-minded people is nice, and sometimes going out of your comfort zone, meeting people who have different mindset can also be very interesting, because it start open your mind in terms of what is right, what is wrong. And in the end, even with software development, it's almost like an art. There's not really a right and wrong at certain things, and at the end of the day, it's part of a trade-off. And be able to find that trade-off is much, much more difficult than in terms of saying 1 + 1 = 2, and that's a right answer.
So software engineer is an art.
In my perspective, software development is really an art. It's not just an art, it's there's science and art combined all together. There's so many facets to it.
That's really beautiful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your own journey, sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Everything.
Thank you, Annie. It's an absolute honor to be here to talk with you, Annie, and I hope that my stories could inspire others, and if not, then just listen to it as an interesting story. That's fine.
It inspires me.
Okay, then perfect. Then good. My goal achieved.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining me on Thrive Up today. In the next episode, we are going to discuss challenges of women in tech and how to overcome imposter syndrome. Stay tuned. You can find our podcast on thriveup.co, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We also have a weekly newsletter that shares tips for career growth and summary for things we've mentioned in the podcast. You can also find my contact information on the website. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and I will see you next week. Have a good week, everyone.